This video is about the germ theory of disease and really the strongest evidence that showed people that they should really believe the germ theory of disease. The theory has held up for a very long time and we still believe it is true. And what it says, again, the germ theory of disease, what it says is that infectious disease are caused by microorganisms, right? So, what was it that changed people's view from miasmatic theory to the germ theory of disease? Well, the strongest evidence that anyone has ever really seen for this was the experiment done by Robert Koch. And his series of experiments and observations have been named Koch's Postulates in honor of this. So I just want to think about what this means. Koch's postulates are strong evidence for the germ theory of disease, but more than that, they will convince the scientific community that a given microorganism is the main cause of a disease. So we would use that, for example, if we're studying something like a new disease, like COVID-19. Koch's postulates are what we use to verify that it is caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So, if we can satisfy Koch's postulates, we can say that the microorganism is both necessary and sufficient to cause the disease. So let's think a little bit about what that means. That means that the only thing that causes the disease is that microorganism. So if we satisfy Koch's postulates regarding COVID-19, it would mean that the SARS-CoV-2 virus is enough to cause COVID-19. And it's the only thing that causes it. And if it's present, the disease will happen. So COVID-19 is not the best example of this because some people can be infected with that virus but not get the disease COVID-19. Anthrax, though, is very different. Anyone infected with the bacterium Bacillus anthracis will get anthrax, and chances are they will die, especially if they are a sheep. So Robert Koch studied anthrax, which is caused by the bacterium Bacillus anthracis. And if you happen to inject those bacteria into a sheep, the sheep will get sick with anthrax and they'll die. So Koch's postulates take the form of 4 experimental results or observations. And where are they? Here they are. So the first one is that the same microorganism is always present in every case of the disease. And Koch had seen that in every case of anthrax, he could find the anthrax Bacillus anthracis bacterium. The next thing is, after observing that, the scientist has to be able to do an experiment. And so they have to get that organism, in this case Bacillus anthracis, in what we call pure culture. So they have to isolate it so that if they do an experiment with it, it's not mixed with other bacteria. And this is a big challenge, and you're going to learn how to do this in the lab. So pure culture is a big deal, and we'll see more about this in lab. So that's the second step. So the first thing is, when you look at dead sheep, if they're killed by anthrax, you always find these bacteria. The second is that you get the bacteria out of a sheep and you purify it so it's not mixed with anything else. And when you're studying anthrax, this is easy because these bacteria will grow in the bloodstream of a sheep until there are 10 to the 9th cells per milliliter of blood. That is 1 billion of these cells per every milliliter of blood. And I believe there are 5 milliliters in a teaspoon. So it's an astronomically huge number of these bacteria in blood by the time they kill the sheep. So it's very easy to draw some blood and you have these bacteria in pure culture. Then you do an experiment. Inject them into a new animal. And if that new animal gets that disease, wow, then you have just shown that these bacteria are necessary and sufficient to cause the disease. And then the last thing you have to do is study the sick animal and verify that the thing growing inside it is very similar to what you put in. If it is, then you've satisfied Koch's postulates. So those are the 4 steps required to satisfy Koch's postulates, or what we call Koch's postulates. And Koch did this exact thing with anthrax, and he was able to prove to the scientific community that this bacterium causes the disease anthrax by doing these steps. Since then, other people have used these same steps to show that various microorganisms cause various diseases. And we'll come back to this again later in the term, but it's important that you know Koch's postulates really have done 2 things. One of them is they're used routinely in medical research to show that a certain microorganism does in fact cause a disease, and that's the first step if you want to cure a disease that's caused by microorganisms. You have to find out what causes it, and everyone has to agree on what causes it so that we can study it. But also, this was how he showed people the germ theory of disease was valid. So this was a huge step forward in our understanding of microorganisms and their effects on humans. So again, these are the 4 steps required to satisfy Koch's postulates. And you really should know them. There are really 4 steps. This one is an observation you make, and then this is a thing you have to do. This is an experimental result you have to get, and this is another experimental result you have to get to satisfy Koch's postulates. So that's enough for now. I will catch you later.